institutions are clarified and the policy is in place, thus this model may not work. How is simulation land use dynamics for 2030 is made? I mean, I don't understand the inputs. What are the inputs? Policy inputs, institutional inputs, physical inputs, economic inputs, human resource inputs. How is this developed? And also is only for I know that you do this scenario to align with Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. When usually when scenarios develop, necessarily observe that maybe scenario up to 200 could be an appropriate time for scenario development. I don't understand why you restrict yourself to your development to only 9 years from now. Maybe you can do it more longer time horizon. As scenarios are usually developed for longer time horizon, up to 50 years. There is a reduction in cultivated land, which leads to reduction in food provision in ecosystem service. Now, in your land cover change, you have got a reduction, a considerable reduction in cultivated land. This is going to reduce food provision in ecosystem service. This is not maybe desirable for the people that are living in the hinterlands. So why consider that as a thing? I don't understand. The other one is built up area is given zero valuation in ecosystem services. You see land ecosystem service, land for building, land is also providing ecosystem service. Maybe ecologists do not consider built up area as ecosystem service because it is a service that people get from nature. Residence is a service that you get from nature. But usually as ecologists do, I think it will be a little bit of innovation so that we can improve the use of land for residential ecosystem services. This ecosystem service consider built up area almost always as a negative issue. That is not true. So I think you have to find ways of including built up areas ecosystem services in not assigning a zero value to ecosystem services as with some services. Again, my question is how did you convert the ecosystem service values into monetary terms? If you can please explain this issue. The summary, conclusion, and recommendations are mostly, I found they are mostly generic and loaded with general statements and opportunities that study offers for policymakers and future researchers without telling how. You see, for example, in conclusion, on one side, you put recommendation on the other side in your presentation. Conclusion can be, I see the conclusion as a problem and the recommendation as telling other people what to do. I don't expect this type of arrangement from a conclusion. Conclusion should be, you have a proper conclusion. Conclusion is a section where you are expected to show the convergence and divergence between your own findings and other previous works. It is also where you present synthesis of how you work, contributes to theories and methods in the field. You also need to make the policy implications of research findings explicit and concrete. This is what the conclusion should contain. Conclusion should not be problem identification, and this problem in the recommendation is not how to solve this problem. I think what recommendation are telling other people to solve the issues that we have identified. It didn't show how to do it. You didn't show how to do it yourself. For example, you suggested design and implement, establishment of institutional framework in the markets, learning issue, all this has to be done by others. Maybe what I expect you do some of the issues to demonstrate that you have solved some of the problems through your thesis. The others will do what you couldn't do because of lack of time. References are really seem to have been produced in a hurry. References and listing are in some different. Thorough revisiting of reference listing and reference citation is very much recommended, because even how you cite, sometimes you put initial at the beginning and full name next. I don't know which way the civil service university dissertation will follow, which in the Addis Ababa University we normally follow Harvard system of reference citation. When we cite and when we list, there is a regulation about that, but here it didn't stick to a single type of regulation. You have to refer to the Civil Service University reference citation regulation and adjust accordingly. Finally, I see this work as very important, and I could say it's a great groundbreaking type of research, which with minor recommendation, minor modifications that I have recommended in minor editorial works that you can see yourself in the thesis. After improving this can be really, I would say, is a very, very, very interesting and very, I would say it's an excellent doctoral degree. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Professor. Can I invite Professor Mazi? Let's make it as much as possible short.
I also agree that this kind of research is very interesting, and the candidate has done a really a good effort. And as I am requested to make it short, I will focus on one single point, which is my favorite topic. Going straight away to literature review, to page 27 on theoretical framework, and I would like to talk for about 7 to 10 minutes about the role of theory in scientific research. Some of what I'm saying or I'm going to say may apply to you, and some may not apply to you. But my talk, I use this opportunity to address the candidates and address ourselves, the educators as well, because the role of theory in scientific research, especially in this type of research, gains importance as the ecology as a subject throughout the world now, where the world is interested, the interest of the world in sustainability and sustainable development in the light of climate change and all that. All these ideas come together and make an urgency for ecology, what the candidate has put in his research may not be all new to us all, but what's new, what's interesting, that he teaches others how to make information about the ecology, which is available even at cultural level, how to make it quantifiable and how to measure it, and how to make a system for modeling, for, as you say, which is very interesting and fine, monitoring ecological change as base for scientifically based policy making. Having said that, I just want to draw your attention as a candidate, and of course the gentlemen here, they know that there has been in the past years unfortunate division in research between research in science and research in professions. Research in scientific research, whether it is natural science or social science, research, the main aim of research is to develop theory. In the professions, generally, and architecture and planning, engineering, of course, is a bulk of that. They don't care much about development of theory, but they care about development of policies, artifacts in the case of architecture, and development of policies in planning, particularly urban planning. This situation is now been changing over the past 2 decades, or maybe more, a little more, since Simon's important book, The Science of the Artificial, in which he advocated design science. And since then, engineers particularly, and information technology scientists have gained a lot on an integrated approach towards integrating scientific method and design method and making something called design science. You, Mr. Candidate, Mr. Kiros, it's easier for me to pronounce. You are interested in publishing, and publishing requires high standard and requires high academic standards to gain strength and to gain legitimacy. You have to obey the rules of scientific research. As I said earlier, in design, in scientific, whether it is natural science or social science, they care about the development of theory. The professionals, as I said earlier, cleverly, they manage to satisfy both, doing the part of development of research, development of theory, and using that knowledge to develop tools and strategies to, as you reached in your conclusions, to develop policies based on scientific methods. Now, coming to page 27, I hope I make myself clear. Coming to page 27, you mentioned socio-ecological system theory, complex adaptive systems theory, and economic valuation theory. I think you put these three theories, I think, I might be wrong, you put these three theories as part of the literature review, and you were happy, you were satisfied by quoting the writers between brackets after each paragraph. You mentioned the reference of the writers throughout like that. Sorry to say, without satisfactory discussion of those quotations. Discussion in this case with me, how would these theories apply to the context of the developing world, particularly Ethiopia, and more particularly to the case here of Mekelle city. This is a very important point. And again, I will criticize you a little bit more, sorry to say that. This research was not successful in observing the role of theory as far as the rules of scientific research is concerned. The role of theory in scientific research was not clearly observed in this thesis. To me, it was not clear to me that you have managed to carry on these three theories throughout the thesis as it should have been. Although you have reached similar, which makes me also optimistic, you have reached similar results by your own way. You have reached building a model, I think. Modeling is a very important result of scientific research. Last night I consulted the internet links, and here what they say: in deductive inference, we hold theory as you did, and based on it we make predictions. This comes here, the hypothesis. Based on theories that are available, you are not building a new theory. You are using existing theories. We hold a theory, and based on it, we make predictions of its consequences. You follow? We hold the theory, we make predictions of its consequences on the context under investigation. This is, of course, a standard thing. That is, we predict what the observation should be if the theory were correct. Of course, here you may not be interested in proving theories are correct or not correct. That might not be your objective or your interest. But you can use these theories to develop models which you have already done. And the purpose of a model, just this little add to your thesis here, I'm not covering, I'm within the range of the time you gave me. And the purpose of the model here, keeping my eye on future research. How would you benefit, not only yourself, but you would benefit the academic community, the researchers, and the future people who are going to do more research, even in Mekelle itself. Because obviously, this is a very dynamic situation, and it needs continuous monitoring, as you said, and it needs policy making to be based on scientific research. So the purpose of modeling, which you can easily add to your thesis, how would the developed model be used first to explain future trends, as you have studied past trends? Why? To be able to predict future trends on scientific basis, not necessarily only on empirical data, but also you have got the model which will help make decisions very quickly. So we have got two purposes of the models which you have built. The first one is to explain, and the second, obviously, is for not for you, but for others to use this effort to make policies to solve problems, to produce policies to solve problems. Final point, if you don't mind, we have been experimenting at master level and PhD level also lately at Weldegebriel University and some other universities about using design science in architecture. And this is, I must say that I thank marvelous civil service universities that have opened this opportunity for me to address planners. By the way, my MSc and PhD in planning, but I preferred later on to, my first degree was in architecture. Then I became planner when I did my postgraduate, then I returned back to architecture. But now, I think I will get back to planning, and I have explained all this basic role of theory in research. I have explained that in my latest published work. It will be published online shortly, within 21. It's called the ACC, Evaluation Creation Cycle, a methodology for theory and practices research. We have been practicing or experimenting in architecture quietly because of the resistance of architects normally, like in your case also it is obvious, the resistance of architects to do theory. They prefer to do designs. But in planning, it is easier. It will be easier in planning because planners are more developed in research. And you already have done halfway through. I mean through how to use theory in research. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Very nice. Professor Samson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like also to join my friend in congratulating Shishay for his excellent work. The dissertation is very interesting and well written. He has demonstrated his ability to understand this vast area of research and clarify the problem, and he tried to also to develop sound solution for the problems. In terms of content, it was sufficient, substantial, and broad range, which allows coverage of all the fields. In terms of knowledge, Shishay has displayed sufficient knowledge of the area, the capacity, and his ability to clearly think. And he has also demonstrated the superior ability of analyzing and design. So, in that, I really appreciate your question. When I go to the specific comments, abstract is well written, but the only thing is that in terms of using key term, make it keywords. And keyword is one term, it's not two words. Okay, chapter 1 is well written. It has a very good introduction about motivation and clearly explaining the background, the statement of the problem, and the general and specific objectives are clear. We go to the literature review. I agree with Professor Hailu. It contains everything. The way you write it is a bit confusing. First, you started with the basic concept and definition, which is good. You began with ecosystem service evaluation, importance of ecosystem service evaluation, and then before you go to this, you have to continue with ecosystem, okay? Then you enter the land use and you come back again to the ecosystem services, the historical and philosophical development ecosystem. Finish first the ecosystem part, then come to the land use, so the flow, the reader will get a clear flow in understanding your review. Then I think some important literatures are missing from this literature review. For instance, you talk about Mekelle and surrounding hinterland, but there is a good concept of city region. You could have used that concept and come up with a certain framework for you to analyze, even to suggest any policy implication or institutional setup for even later for your suggestions. So this is missing. Again, you are talking about rural-urban linkage, but this is not covered in your literature. Okay. The third important thing, which later when you do your modeling and suggest, you talk about sustainable development and this the agenda from 15 to 2030, yeah, which is important. But in your literature review, this has to come out clearly. Sustainable development, what is it? And the relationship between sustainable development and ecological services. Okay, these are somewhat missing. So you need to cover these important aspects. Methodology is good. It covers everything, but the way you structured it is confusing. Okay, you try to use this onion, but that should have been very fine if you followed the same step. Okay, instead of starting from mixed method, start with the philosophy first. Okay, so you said it is pragmatic, then the worldview, pragmatic, start with that. Then the approach should be explained, then the strategy, then your choice, the time horizon, and the technique and the procedures finally. Okay, the research only mentioned. We go to the analysis. I agree with Professor Hailu that you should focus on the land cover, basically, land use and land cover. Avoid this land use only. So this chapter 4 is about the analysis of land use and dynamics. It is well written. You want to quantify the land use and cover change using satellite image from 1972 up to 2009. I just keep his question as it is. Okay, why you choose time frames? But my question is, you use different kind of Landsat, yeah, Landsat 1, Landsat Do they have the same kind of resolution? Okay, you have to elaborate that, okay, to check. Then where you try to see Mekelle and the hinterland. So in your qualitative analysis there, in that chapter, you select 15 people, key informants. Yeah? These 15 people, are they from Mekelle? Because you mentioned a lot of names which I don't know, like Arato, Ayanalem, Jalekto, Debri, the Deba. Are they the hinterland or the city? Have you selected from the city and the hinterland? How? How many people? The other mistake is you couldn't quantify from the key informant interview. You just transcribe what they said. That is important. Otherwise, you take 15 people, you said 14 people said that, that's 90-30%, etc. This kind of analysis is wrong, completely wrong. Avoid that, okay? You have to cut it out. Then when you describe this, when you transcribe the qualitative data, as much as possible, try to give information about the respondent, because that would increase the level of reliability of your data, okay? For instance, a 70-year-old guy said, such and such, who is that guy? What is his name? Where is located? Okay, that would give a credibility to your data. Otherwise, it's just narration, okay? The reader should understand whether you got it from the data or you are narrating by yourself. That has to be clear. Chapter 4, driving force of land use, land cover change. This chapter is also well written and understandable. The chapter employed both by physical and anthropogenic drivers. These two terms, you try to introduce them in the introduction part, but you left them out in your literature review. These are important, okay? Again, the one problem here, Dr. Hailu asked you about the population. Of course, population growth always has an impact. But now you get the population data from census. Yeah? And how do you delineate your area of study? Is it similar to the census enumeration area? Because in 1972, when was the first census? 1984? Then before that there was a survey. How do you get this data for that study area, okay? To check the changes. Again, your table on page 113, it's about the anthropogenetic driving force. It is purely based on your opinion. You asked 15 people, for instance, built up area expansion. The 12 people said, and it's 80%, which is not really acceptable. Instead of asking their opinion, you have the data already. Okay, so you don't have to have qualitative data in such a way. Chapter 6, the title is quantifying the spatio-temporal variation of ecosystem service value for the 47 years. Yeah, minor suggestion here, change the title. Instead of quantifying, say just simply the spatio-temporal variation of ecosystem service value. That will be enough. Here also you mentioned the mixed method approach, but you didn't discuss the result of the qualitative data in the description part. The willingness to pay, the last chapter, you focus on the city residents. What about the other living in the hinterland? They should be part of the interview and the survey, and you should have analyzed the result. Otherwise, why you are, again, is there any kind of institution set up, to manage your proposal? For instance, the development plan, the third one, the third scenario, who is responsible for that? The city or is there any woreda, or I don't know how it is organized. There must be a functional link between the city and the hinterland, okay? You go beyond the city proposed plan, yeah? The boundary, you go even beyond that. So whose responsibility? How do you manage this kind of institutional setup, okay? You have to explain that. Otherwise, I found your thesis very much interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Samson.